Okay, we are back. Welcome to the Wardroom. I am Lamerck. Today we are going to be looking at Seawolves versus Vodcoalition. That is game week 3 of the NSL. I hope you guys can all hear me now because I'm going to just truck on as though you can. Um, let's talk about this battle. It needs a preface because it is a very short, very brutal battle. And I think at the last time, 2 Thursdays ago, when I teased this, I talked a lot about how, for me and for our purposes here in the Wardroom, it may not be the most, it doesn't have the most to pick apart because it is so, it's a single and maybe two major strategies at play here. But while I can rag on it from perhaps not having so much content for us to draw out of it to make for dramatic, retelling of it and sort of analysis as we like to do here in the Wardroom, what I do think that this battle can show are some serious fundamental 101 captaining skills that you need to have to be competitive and certain things that you need to avoid, or else other more experienced teams are going to just crush you. And that's what we're going to see here today. So let's get started. This is our opening here. You're going to have, I believe we have the Seawolves on the left, who are in the more, I think they're red ships. And we have the Vodcoalition here. These are the French and the British teams. So Vodcoalition is going to be the French team. What we're going to see is basically both of these teams are just going to go flowing in. They're going to go up right now. On the compass, it's west, right? So they're just going to go up. They're going to turn right and they're going to turn left and they're going to just meet between two of these islands and they're going to just start throwing haymakers at each other with their cannons, and the strongest just beats the hell out of the other team. But it's also a story about positioning, a story about aggression, and also about how when things get really complicated, you do have to hold a certain line, a certain formation. You have to find a way to stay cohesive. And in the face of an enemy that's scattered, cohesion will win. So let's get started looking at these opening moves. I'm not sure if you guys can see my cursor. And so I'm not going to gesture with my cursor too much. Instead, I'm just going to describe what we're seeing on the screen together. So the teams are going to head west, right? So right now on our screen, that's up. Now you're going to see in the beginning that the Vodcoalition, who is on the right side of our screen, did not seem like they were going to head west. It did not seem like these guys on the right-hand side of our screen were going to turn starboard. But that is exactly what they end up doing, except they do it later. They do it second, right? And the lack of priority going into what is a choke point to the west, because those islands, the angles of the islands lead you to come closer to one another. So if you were both to go west, you don't have a choice. You're going to get close to the enemy fleet. To make a decision to get close to the enemy fleet right off the bat is something that you have to do with no hesitation. If that's the plan that you're going to have, if that's the choice you're going to make, you cannot waffle around in the beginning of the match, or else the enemy will get there first. You give them the opportunity to get where you're going before you, and the results are what you're going to see in this battle, extraordinarily decisive. While we're waiting for some of this to go, I have not had a chance to pull open Twitch just yet. So I have Control Room with me here today, obviously, after I started it and had no sound. So Prof, I know you're listening in. Let me know if there is any commentary going on the Twitch stream or anything like that, and I can always jump around and open it up. However, aside from that, we're going to just keep going with the analysis here. So as you can see, both of these teams are heading west. It's slow. I would imagine this is, I'm not sure if this is against the wind. Probably isn't. They're probably both going with the wind. And if they are, it's going to be a battle of speed. So let's move to, let's say 23 here. We can just kind of fast forward through a little bit of this because it's so slow going here. But right here, we can already see how this is developing. Now, sometimes the angles can be misleading. It can show one team a little bit further ahead than the other. But if you look on the left-hand side of the screen as compared to the right-hand side of the screen, the two fleets, the British fleet is getting to where they're both going faster. And what that means is that they are going to get they're going to have more of their cannons able to rotate on their enemy. So like, think about you're on the right side of one of these British ships and you're aiming your cannon. The enemy can only shoot, in what we're looking at right now, it could shoot somewhere around like south. Whereas that's the French team. Can shoot like south. The British team is covering something more like north to northeast, maybe even to east. And you can see just kind of by thinking about where you would be if you were pointing a cannon straight off the side of one of these ships, that the British team is going to get more cannons into rotation faster, earlier. The Seawolves are a very strong team. The Vought Coalition is also a very strong team, but the Seawolves have extraordinary and experienced cannoneers, and they're going to show you exactly what they can do with those cannoneers if given basically no real pressure. Because one of the things about these battles, they come together slowly because you don't want to apply a bunch of pressure to your own crew all at once by having the enemy fleet just send volley after volley at them. You want your great cannoneers to be completely unmolested during the entire time that they are shooting. The best thing that you can ever have is where you're shooting and they can't shoot back. And you can see that the French ship, if you just look at the trajectory of some of their cannon shots, especially towards the rear of their line, they can only shoot the British's back 3 ships at this point. Most of their ships cannot even touch the ships of the British team. Most of the French ships cannot touch the front 2 British ships. They just cannot hit them. They cannot get rotation on their cannons. They can't turn their cannons enough to the right to get that shot. This is catastrophe. And it happened because the Vought Coalition did not choose soon enough what their plan of attack was going to be. And then when they finally did choose a plan of attack, they chose one that sends them directly at the enemy. If you're not sure what you're going to do and you lose some time at the beginning of the battle, you absolutely cannot just bum rush your enemy, especially if we're going to bum rush them is to a choke point. You can see the angles of these ships, the angles of the fleets as well, trying to get back to just, look at the angles that the coastlines are forcing these guys to go, right? You have to basically go inside between those 2 coastlines. In this situation, you can't, if you were the Vought Coalition, you would want to be turning hard to starboard, hard to right here. But there's an island. You can't turn right here. You can't bring your guys. You have to go past that corner of the island, and only then can you turn right. This is going to give the British team a tremendous amount of time to just put cannonballs into the French team, and they do it. I mean, the next few minutes of us watching is just watching if you take a look on the right side here, almost every single cannon on the French flagship is gone. That is the effect of being able to, or not being able to shoot something while that thing can shoot back at you. And basically it's the flagship. It's this flagship right here laying in. All of the ships really of this line are going to be focusing entirely on the French flagship. I don't blame them. And they do incredible amounts of damage. So let's get to around, let's say, 27 here. All right. So this is where things end up. All right. So what you have to imagine here is that the British just cut in front of the enemy, and then they turned left. The enemy, as soon as they passed the corner of that island, the only island that we can see here on the screen right now, they turned hard right. And then they swung back around, because turning hard right is not the best thing for them either. It's just the only thing that can get them into a rotation on the enemy. Now what we're looking at is 2 different sides of a morale break situation. I love Holdfast because I think I said this in one of the previous broadcasts. I love that morale can actually snap in moments like this, where if the enemy gets such a good position on you, your captains and you lose the presence of mind that kept you all together, and it starts becoming an every man for themselves kind of scenario here. You can see on, again, the 2 different formations that are going on here. On the upper right hand side, you see basically the Vought Coalition ships all in disarray. Most of them have some form of showing their back to the enemy ships. It couldn't be worse for them. Meanwhile, the Seawolves are fairly organized. They're not all together, but they do have a 3-ship line. And I'm going to count that as the flagship right at the center of the battle, the 8-gun behind it, and then if you look a little bit farther down to the right, you'll see another 8-gun that is also shooting at the same target. So a formation is any time that your ships are all concentrating fire at a target, and they're relatively close together. Now, there are 2 of the Seawolf ships that seem to have broken off to the left side, the bottom left-hand corner of the screen right now. And I'm not sure if they're fighting. They may be fighting one of the VOD Coalition ships or a gunboat or something. But what you can tell about the VOD Coalition's position here on the upper right-hand corner of the screen is that there is no cohesion. The 13 gun is fighting, but all the rest of the ships have completely broken formation. This is because they're actively not sure what to do at this moment, and there may not be great communication within. Once a catastrophe like this strikes, it takes a very firm leader and somebody who really knows what to do in a panic situation to organize these ships and give them each individual commands while your own ship is in combat and you're trying to pilot it. It's very difficult to do. So let's move forward. We're at, let's go to about 29 minutes here. I mean, I just want to show you some of the on-the-ground footage that we get sometimes here, because it can really show you how absolutely chaotic this whole thing ends up being. It is a pell-mell battle. It is a ships crashing into each other, horrible damage being taken. This ship sacrifices itself basically, and it doesn't really gain anything by doing so, but it's kind of glorious. They jump on here, they board a little bit. Not much really happens though that stops the the Seawolves, the 77th and HLG combined, from really just moving on. Right, and so you can even see, it's hard to see because it's a little blurry, but you can see here this dark spot. That's the HP of the French flagship. This is the HP of the British flagship. It's basically not even down to half yet. So this wasn't even really close. The most important ship in the battle, it really wasn't close. So let's analyze the end game here. As you can see, this is where that ship was just sunk that we were just watching. This is the flagship on the bottom right. Those are the two flagships, one sunk, one is positioned. Again, we have a line. Look on the right side of the screen. We have the 13 gun, we have an 8 gun behind it, and far ahead of it, we have another 8 gun that's providing coverage. This is strong. What do we have on the other side? We have the VOD Coalition. We have 2 of them kind of towards the center, bottom center of the screen, maybe even 3 at this point, because I do think they do have all 4 of their ships yet. So they have these 3 here. The one on the bottom is out of rotation of anything. The one in the middle is in a good rotation, and the one just above, like in this line that's closer to the enemy here, this is like a half decent formation, but these guys are also still not, only 2 of the ships are really in firing range and rotation. They're also blocking another ship that's behind them, which is the one off to the left. It's just not a tight formation. It's not giving all of the ships an opportunity to do damage. Some of the ships are interfering with each other's ability to do damage. Some of the ships are just not in a rotation. They haven't gotten the side of their ship turned around in a way that can hit. So you'll notice also that the Seawolves, I guess feeling themselves a little bit, have actually sent an 8 gun, which is also in the bottom center, that is right up close and personal with all these ships. This is a great move. I don't know if they did this on purpose or this is just how things played out, but if you're in a commanding position, if you are a ship up from the enemy, the best thing that you can do is just give them some kind of red meat to just jump after. And like animals, they'll just go for it, right? Because it's something really close, it's something really easy to hit, and everybody on the VOD Coalition team right now is feeling like, I just want to sink something. I want to do good for my team, because up until now, we've just been getting blown away. And so they're going to bite at that red meat. It's just the nature of a battle where you just want to get something where you can feel like you're contributing because you want to turn things around. But in the meanwhile, none of them are aiming for the flagship. They're all kind of seem to be focused on this 8 gun in front of them. And I mean, you can see here, and meanwhile, the flagship is plugging away. This ship is, the ship of the upper right-hand corner is plugging away. It's not great, and they're crossing in front of each other. It's very difficult to imagine how the VOD Coalition would ever make it out of this. And it really just goes to show the level of concentration. They seem to be getting things a bit better together now, still have 2 ships crossing in front of each other. But by this point, the Seawolves have done such tremendous damage to their fleet because they seem to have just kept their cool in this moment, but they were in control of this moment. That's why they kept their cool. They were from the very moment they saw at the very beginning of the battle that the VOD Coalition kind of wobbled a little bit about going against the wind with them. They knew that they were going to be in a commanding position. And this is what it looks like when you are. You keep your formations and you keep your crossfire and you plug away at the enemy ships. Unfortunately, again, it's not a long battle and there's not too many decision points. There's more just one team hit a really good decision point in the beginning. One team faltered on making a decision in the beginning, and from there on out, one team just consistently holds the other one by the throat and just strangles the life out of it over the course of this battle, which is very impressive, right? It's an amazing showing. But we have to take a few things away from a battle like this. First off, what this means is that we have not yet even begun to see what the Seawolves are actually made of. And I don't necessarily mean that as a compliment. Obviously, I know that they're really good. They're really great cannoneers and they're good captains, but we haven't gotten to see the complexity that they're capable of. And what they might do in a situation that isn't so straightforward. I look forward to seeing that battle because, you know, it's in reviewing it here with you guys here on the Wardroom, because that's really what we need to see from every team. We need to see them pressured a little bit. And in this battle, they were simply not pressured. What does this also teach you about more, fundamental admiral on the ground tactics? You do not. I talked in previous matches about like respect for the opponent, right? You have a certain amount of respect for the opponent, and I don't mean that like in like your heart swells with like manly chivalry. I mean, respect for the opponent is giving them a certain amount of space, not closing with them too fast, not saying like that I despise your cannoneer so much that I'm going to pilot my ships directly at you and see what the fuck you can do, hitting me as much as you can. And then I'll just set up on you. That's not something that you can do in the NSL. There's no team you could do that to here, where you can just bum rush them. And unfortunately, the Bot Coalition bum rushed the Seawolves while they were in a better position, because unfortunately that is how a lot of whether you're on public servers or whether you're at a regimental event, there's a lot of like that not respectful play, because a lot of times your opponents, especially captains, are novices. They don't know what to do when you charge at them. They freak out, they run, they try to turn in a weird direction. You can't do that in a competitive scene. You have to let's just go back to the opening move, because that's really the only one we can properly analyze here. Right about here, maybe a little bit closer, I would say, but certainly before you get here. So somewhere around here, the Bot Coalition on the right-hand side of the screen needs to turn left. They need to turn port side and present their right side cannons to the enemy team. That sets you up for a line battle, but you two will pass each other instead of going directly into each other. The nice thing about that as well is that maybe you can cut around behind them. They're also obviously going to cut around you, and you're going to end up in a circle, right? That's how circles start. It's two lines pass each other, and they both swing around to try and continue firing at each other, and then they form a circle with one swinging in one direction and the other swinging in the other direction, each chasing each other's tail, right? That would be a lot better than this. I don't particularly like that, but that would be a ton better than this. I think another interesting strategy could have been to just sort of hold the center, put your ships in the middle of the battlefield and just see what you can do from there, and just let the enemy kind of slip in and out of your range. Other things that they could have done is they could have, like, you could see that they're already turning right here. They could have taken a really hard right, lured the Seawolves onto the other side of the islands and fought them in the channels between the far side of the island and the beach around the outside edge of the Coliseum. I don't know. There's so many things that they could have done, but what they did do, unfortunately for them, is they went straight in when, let's try and get a good picture of it, when the British ships were crossing in front of them. They were going to get there first. They had better wind. They had better everything. And because they were basically going with the coastline. You see the island on the left? You can see how they're kind of riding that coastline. They are going to be in a better position to turn their cannons in. If you take a look at the French team, they're not following their own coastline, actually. They are in, they're just going straight to the west, or west, southwest, whatever this is. And so they have to wait until they get to the other side of that corner to turn. And that's where these critical moments are where so much damage was done to that flagship that they basically eliminated the Bot Coalition flagship. They just turned it into a sailing ship because it didn't have any cannons left. And it wasn't going to get any cannons anytime soon. And it wasn't going to be able to turn its other side cannons, and most of those were destroyed. So anyway, this was a brutal battle. I can't wait to see more from both of these teams. I am actually competing against the Bot Coalition on Saturday. I'm very excited. I really hope that they come out with, a more cautious strategy, not cowardly, right? I don't want a defeat like this to make them think that they can't be aggressive. They most definitely can. The problem is we want to make sure that they're just not running into an enemy fleet like this. And if you see a bad situation, don't be afraid to pull out of it. It's better to pull out of it. It's better to pull out of it early and say, you know what, we need a different vector of attack. We need to just not do this one. There's no shame in it. Because sometimes when you pull out of what looks like a good position for the enemy, they get greedy and they want to keep that position. They really liked what you were about to do, and then they start chasing you, and then you might be able to turn around and pull something on them. So that push and pull of the battle is something that I want every team in the NSL to continue to refine, and every captain and every admiral to consider when you're out there. I don't have too many more comments on this particular battle. Again, the fundamentals that you can learn from this are extraordinary. And, it's all about just keeping that respectful distance, starting by harassing different points in the enemy line, waiting for them to make a mistake and then pouncing on it. Charging at the enemy is almost always going to get you. If you don't know what to do after you make contact with the enemy, then you have no plan, right? If your only plan is I just get to the enemy, and then we just start firing at each other, and hopefully I win. You don't have a plan. What you have is you're just rolling the dice. You're just flipping a coin. And against guys like the Seawolves, you can't do that because they have great cannoneers and they're experienced naval competitors. So you need to do something much smarter if you want to trick them into giving up those advantages to you and giving you other advantages that you can use yourself. All right. So we're going to move on because I knew that this one was going to be a little bit brief. We're going to go to preseason game week 4. That is my battle with the Leviathans versus the Black Sea Fleet. Controversial in lots of ways, which we like, kind of saying because, there were times in this battle where rocket boats or gunboats got shot at. There was a strategy that I'll talk about later where we basically absolutely did spawn camp them, not unintentionally, but it ended up being that way because our ship got demasted in front of their spawn. There were, an interesting fleet formation from the Leviathans that I can explain a little bit and take you into, and just, overall, it was a fun battle. I mean, it forced me to do a lot of thinking as an admiral about what I wanted out of my fleet and how to, patch holes in formations or cover angles of attack that I didn't want to deal with, or, et cetera, et cetera. And there were some serious mistakes that I made as an admiral, and we're going to go into those too. Beforehand, obviously, I want to make a note that I'm commentating on myself here. I'll try not to be biased in my own favor, and instead try to be very generous to the Black Sea Fleet, though there are going to be times when I criticize things that they do, and, I hope you know that I'm coming from a place where I'm trying to be impartial, just as I have been for all these other games, despite the fact that, I was the admiral on one of the teams. All right, so let's get to the beginning here. Get my little fleet formation sizzle reel going here. Hold on a second. All right. There we go. So I think the fun thing for me to talk about that I can give you some insight on is our fleet formation, which is, I hope that you will agree, a little unorthodox in the NSL thus far. The fleet formation was wide, basically, instead of narrow, straight, not snake-like. You can see here that I have offset my 13 gun. My 13 gun is supposed to be behind the 8 guns a little bit because I have more range. So they go into range, they turn into range, and then I turn a little bit later, and then I'm in range, even though I'm a little bit set back. So that means, hopefully, only the enemy 13 gun is really getting solid hits on me because I'm at 13 gun range, and I let the 8 guns sponge up a little damage. Now, this was the first time my crew was doing this, and my captains were doing this. And, listen, we certainly have some work to do on this fleet formation. But let's take a look, first off, at what's happening between the two fleets and how we're interacting with each other. So, if I'm not mistaken, the wind is to the west here. So it should be going off towards the upper right-hand corner of the screen. If you look on the compass on the bottom left, you can see west. I believe that's where the wind is going. That means that the Black Sea Fleet is, or the Royal Black Fleet, sorry, it might be the Royal Black Fleet, I'm sorry. The Royal Black Fleet is write that down so I don't forget. The Royal Black Fleet is going against the wind, right? This is something that we've talked about in a lot of previous battles. This is a smart thing to do. If you're against the wind in the beginning, by mid-battle, you get the wind. There are some issues that come up for them as they try to get the wind, because having the wind and having a fleet formation are two different things. That said, what I'm trying to do at this point, the reason I like this wide formation is it gives me flexibility to angle my line in any way I want. So if I, let's say they go where they're going, which is east, then what I do is I pull the 2 ships to my left backwards, and I push the 2 ships to my right frontwards, right? Because I'm on the 13 gun, so that's right to left of me. And the line accommodates for where they are, right? So we're just basically like forming around whatever they choose to do. I like the flexibility of this wide formation for that purpose. Whatever the enemy does, we are not stuck either going with them. Like if we turn left here, we would be doing the same thing I just criticized the bot collision of in the last battle, which is just getting close to them, turning against the wind, going nice and slow, and then just beating the heck out of each other. What I'm trying to do is cut around behind them and force a mistake, right? Because I think because of my wide formation here, that they might not know what to expect, right? This is sort of an element of surprise. This is I've never seen this formation been done before, and my hope as Admiral was to make them go like, what the heck is Merc doing? And so they don't have a way to counter it. So they have to just go to fundamentals. And so the fundamentals go against the wind. And if they do the fundamental and I can predict what the fundamental is, then maybe I can do something about it, right? That's the idea behind, some of the strategy there on my end. Now for them, what they're trying to do, as we can see here, is basically they're trying to get around, turn a little bit to the left. Let's try and get back to a screen of the action from above. They're trying to turn left. And I think this is the moment where turning left for them goes bad. As you can see, my fleet has we're all of a line here, basically, the top of the screen. This was a good part for the Leviathans for us. They're trying to turn, collapse their line. They became linear towards our cannons. So as you can see, as we go more towards the left at the top of the screen and they would go more towards the right, they are not in the line formation that you want to be when you're engaging the enemy, but they're actually drawn out very far. There's one ship that's very close to us. There's a second ship that's pretty close to us, a third ship that's even closer to us. Now, what I like about this and what I think they do a really good job at throughout this entire battle is keeping their 13 gun out of the harm's way. It's very good how they do this. I would say that keeping the 13 gun out of harm's way is good for a late game, right? It's good for the late game because obviously you don't want to sink. You want to prevent it for as much sinking as going on. So what they're doing is preserving it for later. However, you're giving up the opportunity necessarily to pour on damage to some of these smaller ships. Now, I do believe, let's take a look, we can even see their shots going. They're hitting my 13 gun, and my 13 gun's hitting them. So the 13 guns are dueling. That is good. And what I really like about, I can't criticize too much. The fact that they have such good range on my 13 gun almost throughout this entire battle, every time they want it, it's sort of an unequivocally good thing. And I can't help sometimes trying to get some of these 8 guns here because they're just such juicy targets. And he might deal a lot of damage to my 13 gun, but he's at a very far range. I'm thinking here that he's probably going to miss as much as he hits, whereas any shots that I take at that 8 gun are going to be guaranteed hits, right? I bring myself a little bit out of the 13 gun range. Things progress. Now, the problem here is that I'm at the point of the battle where I am now going against the wind, right? This is the sacrifice that I chose to make and what they wanted me to do. They wanted me to go against the wind at the midpoint of this spiral that we're doing here. Problem is, like we're looking at here, their fleet formation is not good here. The front of my fleet formation is not great either, but I think they're still getting shots. I would really like those 2 ships at the front to be a better line. They're blocking each other, so that's not good. But I think if you would rate both of these fleet formations, the Leviathans are doing better on the fleet formation right now, even if what we're doing is not perfect. But they're catching the wind, and we're losing it. Now, here's the thing. The reason that we're stopping here is because I noticed that, I am against the wind, but I have also a really good positioning, and that positioning is with islands behind me, right? So their ships cannot take a big loop around the back of my ship. They have to cut in close to go between the rearmost 8-gun of my fleet here on the left and the island. And I gamble that by stopping my fleet here, it's going to stop them from trying to cut in and actually use the wind that they have to cut behind me. So at this point now, we're just going to try and pick off whatever we can get, and their overriding priority has to be to get in some kind of formation with one another. They do, but I don't think they do it fast enough to not lose the 8-gun that my entire crew is aiming at right now. So let's skip a little bit forward here. All right. So as we get to the next part here, I believe we have this ship, the ship kind of at the bottom. You can see a lot more of its sails here, kind of in the middle of things, because it's keeling over. My fleet still has good formation. They're going into the islands. My hope here was realized, which is that they would not try to cut behind our fleet, and instead they would give us a wide berth, because they're worried that if they cut behind our fleet, in doing so, they'll turn some of their cannons out of rotation. Like, basically, they're not making any major mistakes here. The islands are, island usage as an admiral is so important, because it acts as a barrier between the back of your fleet or the front of your fleet or whatever and the enemy, who might want to cut around that part of your line. So we're holding here and we're doing fine. We've taken a ship down. I think we're feeling really good about ourselves. Now, these two ships at the front of my fleet that you guys saw before, and we'll go back to them over the head. Look, let me find one for you. You can see that the ships that were basically all the way to the left or front of my line previously have now looped around behind it. This is Atticus, and I'm not sure who else. And at this point or somewhere near, Atticus asked me for permission to break off from the fleet, and I granted. This was a mistake. Not on Atticus's part, because I understand what he was trying to do, and basically what he was trying to do, he does. He accomplishes it. It's just that at the end of the game, it probably would have been better if we had focused our fire on a single target and not broken up, but we were feeling ourselves. And I mean, the end of the battle is going to show that, I think that we won by a healthy margin. And so this mistake, though it was, does not cost us the battle. When we're looking at the Royal Black Fleet here, we do have to watch, and this is where my guys are shooting at gunboats. You can see the warning here. You can see that they have managed to get back together. Unfortunately, one of their ships has been demasted, and the other 3 have rallied. And this is what you have to do. I mean, listen, it's not a good position for them to be in, to have a ship down or nearly down and then a ship demasted. That puts them in a particularly bad situation. Now, the demasted ship is nowhere near dead, and it's going to survive for quite some time, returning fire to Atticus's ship and the other ship who are following him as they cross behind. Nonetheless, it's a pretty bad spot to be in, and obviously we wish for them to not have to deal with that. But this is where things get a little scary in my eyes for Atticus and the other ship, who are on the top left. They're the top left 2 ships, right? We have 2 kind of phases of the battle. It's the 2 ships which are firing at the demasted ship, and then there are 2 other ships which we're looking at right now. These are the French ships here the French ships are Atticus in them, and those 2 British ships you see out to the left are the ships that could threaten them. Those 2 ships, I have no idea why they are not turning in and pounding the front of Atticus right now. They're shooting for a 13-gun that they cannot reach, while they have the T crossed on Atticus and his ship. If they wanted it, they could have had it. Atticus and the other ship are so concerned with sinking this demasted ship. You can see their entire attention is focused on it. I'm not sure that they really even noticed until probably right about now that there were 2 British ships that had perfect aim and accuracy on them. This could have been a swing moment. Unfortunately, I do not feel as though the Royal Blacks took the opportunity to do it until it was a little too late. Meanwhile, I am enjoying the slowest little, like, I moved nowhere. If you take a look from here to, I don't know what, like 2 minutes later or something, I've basically not moved at all. I am basically going directly against the wind at this point. And I've turned around and I'm trying to reconnect with Atticus, who is trying to reconnect with me. This puts us in a bad position, though, because we are now going in opposite directions. If we stop, which I wanted to do here, it would probably be all right. But the 13 gun gets problematic as it comes out from behind the island. That 13 gun, which you're seeing in the distance now, it is not, it's very much, let's see if we can't get a better quality. I'm sorry, guys. It's starting to hit us in a way that I don't like and starting to come around. Like you can see here, okay, this is our demasted ship, and it is sitting where basically very close to where it's demasted. It's probably demasted, a few hundred meters away, and it's going to just stop any active gunboats from getting to us from behind. So that's the formation there. All right, so now the Royal Black Fleet has reconstituted its remaining ships. We are in much worse of a formation here, and that's really why the decision to let Atticus and the other ship go was probably the wrong one. It's because it messed up our fleet coordination for basically the rest of the battle. We were never together again. As you can see here, it is 2 versus 3 right now in every way. My flagship and the 8 gun behind me versus 3 enemy ships. Luckily, not a lot of hits coming in here. It's a very extreme range, but not good at all. Not to mention, another thing that's not good is I'm moving away from my demasted ship. This is another huge mistake that I made here. I should have never moved away from that demasted ship. It had lots of HP left, and the enemy is going to beeline towards it and take it out, which I think they've already done by this point. So let's go back a little bit, see if we can catch some of it. These guys, anyway, you can see on the right, they're going to continue to turn to their right, and I don't have too much footage of it, unfortunately. And that could be because we lost some footage in this battle. So this is fast forwarding quite a bit. This is basically the end game. They have two 8 guns and a 13 gun left. I have 3 8 guns and a 13 gun left. We sink one of their 8 guns. They sink my 13 gun. We win because we have 3 ships left to their 2. We can go back and talk about some of the moments that decided this battle. I think one of the most difficult ones for us I'd say the first half of the battle was good for us, and the second half of the battle was where I think I made a lot of mistakes as admiral and cut down some of my battle efficiency there. So even when we had technically more ships than they did, they got to press more of an advantage against us, and we won because of the momentum we built up in the early game. This moment right here is the best moment for us, right? We are not quite crossing T's, but we have these guys lined up in a firing line. A lot of them are blocking each other as we continue to move. They don't have the cohesion to fire on a single target because they all have different ranges. So they have to fire whatever it is that they can hit. The 13 gun can only hit my 13 gun. Well, no, that's not true. You can hit any of these ships, but it's only going to shoot at my 13 gun, whereas the other 8 guns here are kind of shooting at whatever they're in rotation of. It's not all cohesive. This is the low point for the Royal Black Fleet. As we move forward, the negative part for me here is what follows after this. After all that's developed, they regrouped over here in the upper right-hand corner. We've kind of regrouped, but we never really fully regroup on the bottom left-hand corner. And then we get to a point where Atticus and his fellow ship are not able to really get in. They're not able to do anything here in a situation where we should have had 4 ships firing at their 3. We have 5 ships active right now. We haven't lost a single ship yet. And yet they've turned it into 3 ships versus my 2 because all the other ships are not able to concentrate fire at the 13 gun. And the 13 gun, again, is using excellent range. The Royal Black Fleet's 13 gun captain, kudos to you, man. You kept your ship alive for the entire... I know that basically at this point, I know that halfway through the battle, you basically had no life left. And you did just such an amazing job making sure that that shred of life that you have left, that you did not lose it. And you never did. So that's something that you should be really proud of yourself for, and that the Royal Black Fleet should be really proud of itself for. Just that excellent ability to use range. Unfortunately, at the end, it was a numbers thing. I did get to see screenshots of the ship HP afterwards. I think I'm fairly confident in saying that with their 13 gun at almost no HP, and having only 1 8 gun left, my 8 guns, the 3 8 guns that were remaining, were above, I think, half HP each. They were all in very good health. I think that had the time gone on, the early buildup that we had and the fact that we had the numerical advantage, even though we weren't using it, probably would have led to a Leviathan victory one way or the other. That's a bold prediction to make, but I did get to see what all of the ship HPs were, and that's what I'm basing it off of. Just I think at the end of the battle, it would have just been it would have just been us punching them and them punching us with as many cannons as they could get into rotation. Because if you look at the end, all our issues of being together as a fleet were basically done by that point. We had this line of 4 ships. As long as we just swung around and kept following them, even if only 2 ships had gone and followed them, I really think they would have been able to sink that 13 gun. Though that said, the 13 gun captain, once my 13 gun's down, he has the opportunity to use that range that he was so good at to outdistance and outshoot the 8 guns. I don't see how very healthy 8 guns would not be able to close the distance. They take some damage doing it. Like my 3 ships would take some damage moving in to get close enough to bring their guns to bear on the 13 gun. But once they did, I don't think it would take too long for the 13 gun to go down. And that's why I am predicting that even if we had another 10 minutes of this battle, I don't think it was as close as I thought it was when I first on the exit interview. I thought this must have been like down to the wire, but it really, our 8 guns were still pretty healthy, and I'm glad to see that. It shows that some of the ideas that I was hoping that would work did pay off. It also shows that, in the end of the day, what wins the enemy team the battle is the mistakes that you make, right? And so, and even what wins you phases about it, because I'm not just talking about, the Royal Black Fleet making mistakes. We made mistakes too, and they won phases of the battle where we made mistakes. So the process of being a great admiral, of course, is the process of increasing the amount of good maneuvers you make and reducing the amount of mistakes that you make. And that is what this preseason is all about, learning. That's what the whole league is going to be about, learning. It's how these teams can continue to develop their fleet work so that they can try interesting and new things, bamboozle each other, trick each other, get each other into bad positions, and enforce errors on the enemy team and then exploit those errors. And, I hope that future battles to come will include more innovation from the admirals that we have here. I can only say it so many times, but I really want to see the most creative strategies out here from you guys. And, the fundamentals, they do work, but they also are predictable. And we've been dealing with them for years. The regular old line, the death spirals, all that stuff, we have been using those as a crutch for as long as I've been playing Naval Holdfast. And the NSL is a great place, especially the preseason, where, win or lose is not as important as it's never going to be as unimportant as it is now. It's important because, you want to prove yourself out there. But, trying new things, trying to lure enemies into certain places, trying to formulate your fleet position in a way that really, that challenges. I can't wait to see more of it. And I know we're going to see more of it as these teams get more experienced and they get more comfortable and understand, what it is that the NSL is asking out of them, what the ship speed means for them, what the cannon ranges mean for them, what the melee aspect means for them. There's so much innovating to do, and I can't wait to see it. I loved this battle. I thought that the Royal Black Fleet did exceptional. I think their captains are extraordinary professionals. Like, they are just really, really good. That 13 gun captain at range, just magnificent. Really, really, really magnificent. I think that, the only issue that they had in this battle was the issue of being able to execute a big turn with lots of ships without those ships bunching up in front of one another. Honestly, that done, I could see this team doing anything. Just getting that fleet formation down a little bit better, and this team can punch as big as any other team. And I look forward to seeing them grow. And I also am looking forward to growing myself, because there's a lot of mistakes that were made in this battle that I hope I pointed a lot of them out. And it's something that I'm going to be working on as well. As an admiral in the NSL, the goal is always to continue to improve yourself. And so I hope everybody takes away some great lessons from these 2 battles. I think this was a much more advanced battle. And I don't just mean it because I was involved. I mean it literally because, like, the strategies here were much more unorthodox and complex, not just for my team. You just how the Royal Black Fleet took a beating in the beginning half, recollected itself, and then came back to really threaten us at the end shows a level of organization at the top that is highly technical. It doesn't seem that way, but it is. Like it might not strike a casual observer that way, I mean to say, but it is very complicated to do. It's very difficult to do because a lot of times when you have a setback in the beginning of the battle, it's so easy to just start gunning and praying and hoping that something's going to turn around, and it doesn't. It takes the discipline of a leader to get its forces back together and hit the attack from a new vector. So congratulations to the Royal Black Fleet. Such you did an amazing job. I'm really proud of the Leviathans. I know we did an amazing job. And on Saturday, I will show you again what the Leviathans are capable of. We are fighting the Vod Coalition, and I really look forward to giving them a great battle. I will, of course, not be announcing. We're trying to set up some announcers now that can sub in, because I think Warble is not around either. So we will see how that turns out. But with that said, we probably don't have too much of a chat. I know I had a false start, so I would not be surprised if people did not join this one, but I hope you guys watch later. And if any of you are watching and made it to the end here, I hope you enjoyed it. With that said, Control Room, I think we can wrap it up. Thanks for watching, everybody else. Talk to you next time.